Mike and Tom are registered with Stewart Partners Global Advisory LLC.
Common Sense Finance with Mike Wiginton and Tom Farrell of HL Wiginton Capital Management, an independent investment and financial planning firm in downtown Jasper. Mike is a chartered financial analyst charter holder, and Tom is a certified financial planner professional. They are here to discuss and give their thoughts on current financial and economic matters. Now, with Common Sense Finance, here are Mike and Tom.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Common Sense Finance. I'm Mike Wiginton. This is Tom Farrell. And as so often is the case, our podcasts are derived from some recurring theme that we see playing out in some form of financial media, where we see these topics come up on a regular basis, and we assume that, the viewership or readership interest must really be there. And so, hey, why don't we do a podcast on that if that's what everybody's talking about or interested in? And so that's actually what spawns today's podcast on target date funds and are they right for you, if you're okay with that title of today's podcast.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So we'll have Tom tell us about what he sees going on in that space with target date funds.
So, if you're not familiar with target date funds, most 401ks have them in there now, and it's basically meant to correspond with your target retirement date. Typically 65 is the age. So if you're 40 years out from retirement, you'll have a 40-year, target date fund. And basically what they do is, as you get closer to retirement, they have what's called a glide path, which means that more of your investment inside that fund is going to be moved from stocks or equities onto the bond side. So it kind of smooths out the volatility, it decreases the volatility as you get closer to retirement. So I was reading an article, it was in the Wall Street Journal, and the National Bureau of Economic Research, never heard of these folks, I don't know who they are, what they do, but MIT guys, some very learned fellows were talking about, and I ended up agreeing with them. It doesn't happen a lot, but that, hey, these things are okay. They're not evil, they're not bad, they're better than nothing, but most people can do a lot better than just sticking all of your money, your 401k assets in a target date retirement fund. Maybe sitting down with an advisor and going through and figuring out maybe that there's a better, more specific investment allocation that you should be using, because these target date funds are kind of one size fit all. So you may be a little bit more risk tolerant, you may need to be or want to be more aggressive than, say, somebody else that's your same age, or somebody may want to be less aggressive. So these things are kind of meant as a catch-all, and that typically is going to, and it's proven true in the past that the performance is not as good as it could be by allocating things yourself or with the help of somebody that knows what they're doing.
Well, look, we've talked on a number of previous podcasts about perceived issues with 401ks, complaints with 401ks. A lot of times, I would say most of the time, I've just totally disagreed with their ideas about, this is a problem. But I can't say that with certainty that the target date fund was specifically invented for 401ks, but I can tell you with certainty that's the first time I ever saw it. And it was brought out because 401ks are accounts, they're corporate retirement plans that are regulated by the federal government, specifically the Department of Labor. And so every time they come up with some edict or some law, then the whole industry has to change. So a lot of problems that I see with 401ks are really government problems, that come from government mandates. And so it was and we talked about this earlier, that they said, you can't let these people, they just opt in. You can't let a plan participant they opt in and they don't ever make any plan select or investment selection, so they just sit there in cash. And that's your responsibility, Mr. Employer, to make sure that these people aren't sitting there in cash. And so they became the so-called default investment option, that if you didn't make a conscious decision of how to invest your money, you were going to go into your target date fund.
Right.
And so, like Tom said, it was just an autopilot. It was done for you, which doesn't really at all. Maybe you're probably right. It's better than sitting in cash.
Oh, sure.
For all those years. But in terms of you picking your own investments for your yourself, based on your situation, I would say it's a definite step backwards.
Yes, for sure. And, you know, this is just something we want people to be aware of. If you, and a lot of people that watch this probably have a 401k or have had or will have a 401k, and those are going to be a lot of the options you'll see. There'll probably be like 40 options, you know, for every year going out, like 40 or 50 years. So that's what that is. And again, it's better than nothing, because we've seen examples of people that have gone into a 401k and contributed for years and years, and the money just sits in the money market and earns next to nothing, and they look up 10 years later and they're, you know, they haven't made a lot of money, which is not a good thing. So we want to, you know, obviously avoid that, but taking a look at the investment options in there and looking at allocation that suits your investment needs will probably get you in a better position than just picking a target date fund. So.
And if I'm not mistaken, and you may recall this, I think those target date funds do, when you're in your 50s, start moving you into bonds in a significant way. Do you recollect if that's still true?
Yes, that is true.
And of course, we've done other podcasts on what we think are the problems with that allocation to bonds. This is January of 2022, so that allocation to bonds today and going forward. So, you know, that's another consideration for those target date funds.
Yep.
Anything else?
That's it.
Leave it there. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Hot thing, barely 21. Hot thing, looking for big fun. Hot thing, what's your fantasy? Hot thing, do you wanna play with me?